everybody, and welcome along to VSL F1 Season 10, round number 3 of the championship in Tier 1, and we head to Miami for the Miami Grand Prix, home to Miami Dolphins in the Hard Rock Stadium. My name is Jess, and joining me once again in the commentary box, we've got Aidan Carter. How you doing?
I'm doing very well, thank you, Jess. Yeah, thank you for having me once again alongside you. I'm looking forward to this one. It's been... I think it must be about 6 months since I commentated on a race around Miami. Miami's not too popular of a track for some of the leagues that we commentate on, because it's not often featured in the calendar, so it's actually quite nice to go somewhere a little bit different, and it's definitely something very different to what we've had so far this season, with the first 2 rounds, of course, being Silverstone and Austria. So yeah, new challenge for these drivers. It's going to be exciting. Yes,
last time we raced here at VSL was last season in the sprint race, where it was a bit chaotic, but hopefully with a bit more practice people would get to grips with the track. But last week we saw a very intense sprint and feature race in Austria, and there was a lot of things that went on in Austria which surprised me quite a bit, but it was pretty much Cam who took the first the sprint and the feature race, but it is Tam that is leading the way on 45 points. I'll need to check if it's something to do with the stewards, but Tam scoring the most points out of all rounds, because he did well in round 1 in Silverstone and round 2 in the Austria as well, and then Charlie Harris having a very strong finish in Austria as well with P2 as well. So good to see some things up there, but Jinx getting some penalties after last week. He wasn't a very popular man in the stewards room, and the results reflected that, but he's still in 4th place in the championship, so still not over yet. He's about 12 points behind the leader, so a good result. Might see him go up the standings a little bit, but at the moment it is a rookie that's topping the standings, which is great to see.
Yeah, really great to see. Like you say, and Tam has had a really strong start to the season. Both Williams have, haven't we? We really spoke about the 2 Williams drivers a lot last time out in Austria. So yeah, really strong start for both of them. Tam especially, of course, being a rookie to the league as well. He's been really solid both for the first 2 races. He's had great results and leading the championship completely deservedly. And yeah, for Jinx, like you mentioned, not a popular driver in the stewards room at the end of last week, but he can bounce back. We saw he had a dominant win in Silverstone, didn't he? He's got the pace, he's got the speed, we know he's got the skill. It just was a bit of a rough round for him last time around. So hopefully for him and for the sake of the championship battle going forwards, he can bounce back and have a bit of a better night tonight.
Yeah, Simon Palmer was also another person that was not popular in the stewards room last week. He received a 5-second penalty and 1 penalty point on his licence due to an incident with Ratesy. I believe it was at the start of the feature race last week in Austria, where Simon outbraked himself. I believe that was caught on stream, so it wasn't able to. I think it wasn't reported by one of the drivers itself. I think what happened was someone from the stewards watched the stream and they were able to see what happened, and then they were basically looked at it themselves, and then basically a penalty was given. But yeah, so Simon Palmer wasn't that popular either. Well, apart from Jinx getting some penalties, everyone else in Tier 1 was pretty clean, which hopefully signifies that we're going to have a clean rest of the season. But with Miami, which had a bit of skepticism in the past due to the fact that it's a street track, but you never know what could happen. So let's get qualifying underway. So obviously first year's Formula 1 last year is back on the calendar this year in real life as well, and it has one part of the circuit that looks like a harbour in the game more than it is in real life, which was very, very weird when it first came to the F1 game as well. And we saw Max Verstappen win the first race in real life as well. Turn 1's going to be, I think, the main opportunity for overtaking, but it's just a different track that we haven't seen before that people can take advantage of as well. And again, the walls are just so close, there's just no margin for error, some of these tracks. And one other part of the circuit which is quite familiar is the bit of throughout the second DRS straight is heading towards turn 11 and 12 that it reminds me of Hanoi in a way as well, due to the roundabouty section. I think it was designed by the same person, Herman Tilks. Again, not really that surprising, that it is quite similar. I kind of wish Vietnam was back for one go, but I can see why people hated it. But yeah, it did take a while for people to get used to Miami on this game, so we'll see if people can improve on their results last time about.
Yeah, we'll definitely have to wait and see. I think, like you said, there's a lot of inspiration taken from the Hanoi Street circuit. I feel like this is a circuit that they built kind of in remembrance for the circuit that never was with Hanoi, with bit of a shame, wasn't it, that it was built right before the pandemic hit, and obviously the pandemic put paid to any sort of chance of us racing at Hanoi, but we've still got remnants of the circuit here. And I think the thing with Miami that I think a lot of people struggle with is this is very much a circuit of compromise, isn't it? It's a street circuit that has everything. It has really, really fast flowing sections, especially that first sector. It's got really, really long straights, but then of course you've got the incredibly narrow and very tight middle part of the lap through underneath the bypass, and of course you've got the really tight hairpins as well at the penultimate corner. So there's a lot to this track, and I think it's difficult to find a setup and a balance that works for every single part of the circuit. So you kind of have to compromise in some places and make gains everywhere else. So I think this is one of those tracks this season where you're going to see a lot of spread, I feel like, throughout the field. I think the field spread is going to be much bigger than we've seen for the first couple of races this season, but that's just kind of the nature of this kind of circuit. And I'm following Luke at the moment, who's on a lap in the Mercedes. He's just coming up to that middle part of the lap as well, where we see the majority of incidents, you would say, with the circuit, because it does not tighten up so much. I mean, you can see the barriers closing in. It feels like you're driving into a dead end, but you're actually driving into one of the tightest sections in Formula One. And there you go, just hopping over the curbs, just showing how difficult it is. Simon Palmer, first lap on the board though, 28.7. Not a bad lap to start off the session. I think his Red Bull teammate will be next across the line, Keza. And Keza puts 0.8 of a second on his teammate, so not a bad lap there as well from Keza. But you would expect the times probably to be closer to the 26s.
Yes, I think there's some certain parts of the circuit where I think it also reminds me of Valencia as well, around turn 9 and 10 as well. So I think those are the two main things to keep an eye on there. But we got Tam, our championship leader, who's currently P1 at the moment, 127.5. GMAT's not that far behind, 127.3. We got Casper, who's just invalidated his run, unfortunately. So is Yarham, he's going into the pits. What about Kieran, who I believe wasn't here last week? He was on holiday, so I hope he had a nice holiday, but he's back racing, has had good experience with this track before, has won a race that I actually raced in around here before, so it's great to see him back here, and hopefully he can improve on his race 1 race, which didn't go very well, but a long way to go for the reigning champion from last season, who's currently sitting in P6 at the moment. Petrodats, what can he do in the middle sector? 30.5 for him as he heads towards the technical part of the circuit. Now, what about Iceman? He's going through sector 2. I thought that Aston Martins will be near each other to give each other a tow, but obviously not. Casper's going to be starting his lap again as well. And I think lap times we could expect, I think we can pretty much say 127, give or take, maybe 127.3 or 2 potentially as well. It is a track where we could see, I think, more of a bigger gap compared to other circuits, because most people have done a lot of racing around here. Some people have not, but I think the top guys we will expect to see in the low 127s, maybe 126 if people are lucky, but I don't think we'll see 126, because otherwise that will be like F1 esports pace, and we would start to question things a little bit. But where is I think we got Knighton about to finish his lap at the moment, so what can he do? He still locks himself in 7th, 129.1. Cam's in the pits, he is invalidated. Iceman wasn't happy with his lap either, and I think we're seeing Casper go on another run. I can't tell if he's improving or not, but he goes through this back straight here, the final DRS zone that you approach at the moment, and acceleration speed is going to be almost 200 miles an hour, and you got to keep an eye on where he reaches at the end of the straight as well, and that depends on the straight line speed you can get when you do the overtake as well. Very windy heading towards the final corner as well. We can see a lot of people go down around the outside through here as well. People make a mistake, but Casper up to the line, P6 for him.
Yeah, not a bad lap from Casper there, but he did miss the apex of turn 17 by quite a way, so there was definitely a lot more time on the board, and that was second lap on that same set of tyres. So I think it's fair to say that around here, a set of soft compound tyres aren't going to last you that long. They do wear out very quickly here, so doing a second lap on them isn't really that ideal. So definitely more time on the board there for Casper, but solid to get our time on the board already in the opening runs. And I think the point that we've made has already kind of been proven with the first runs, hasn't it? Some people are up to speed a lot quicker than others. Tam on a 27.5, and only 9 drivers with a lap, but already the field spread is nearly 2 seconds. I think that just kind of goes to show the nature of this circuit. But after the first runs, you've got to say the surprise is definitely GMAC, isn't it? GMAC hasn't really featured so much this season. He's had some solid runs. He's definitely been clean and kept out of trouble and picked up some points where he can, but he's not really been above 8th or 9th, you would say, on track in terms of pace at any point really so far in the opening rounds of the season. So to be currently on provisionally on the front row and by a pretty comfortable margin, I've got to say, over Keza. Keza's 0.3 of a second back, and then there's another 2.5 back to Luke behind that. So GMAC comfortably in a P2 at the moment, and that is a lot higher than we've seen so far from him this season. By the way, Jinx retired in the pit lane. That is a qualifying ban for Jinx, so Jinx will be starting at the very back of the field, but with a slightly smaller grid and a track like Miami, that may not be a bad thing, because I am expecting at least a couple of safety cars at some point in this race with the nature of this circuit. So yes, we'll wait and see. There's definitely opportunities for Jinx even from the back of the field. I'm just keeping my eye on Yarham at the moment in the Alpine. He's on a run at the moment, kind of in comparison to Casper's middle sector time through that second sector split. So he heads to the final sector. I would expect this time to potentially put him around where Luke and Petchdax are if he can make the apex of turn 17, which he does a lot better than Casper did. So I'd say this will probably put him around 4th or 5th.
Yeah, that would. So he comes towards the final corner now, and the Alpine livery had a little bit of doubt over the past week, as we've got Yarham in P2, who came across the line there. So a very good lap and just beat GMAC. There was a question about the Alpine reveal on I didn't really like that reveal last week, but a few people may bear to differ. But they got the similar type of liveries. They got one for obviously the first few races, and then they got the blue and pink for the rest of the season, as Cam sorts himself in P2. So just like last week in Austria, we got a Williams 1-2. Now Cam has definitely had his strongest start of the season. He managed to score 33 points overall from the sprint and the feature, which was really great to see him performing to his full potential. And he definitely wants to find a way to get even more points here this evening as well. And P2 will definitely be where he is. But the first thing you want to do is beat your teammates. So I think he's having a little bit of a worry that that his teammate may beat him. But he's definitely helping his teammate, looks like, going through this back straight. So it looks like they are working together, which is good, because I will look at the constructors. I believe they are leading the constructors because they have both teammates in the top 4 in the standings. So it's good to see that they are thinking about the constructors as well, with the likes of Tam and Cam as well. 3 blue cars in the top 3, which makes things a lot confusing for 2 of us in the commentary box. But Tam then, he's got warmest tyres. I thought he was on the lap, but he's not. I'm guessing he's backed off a little bit. Who else on the lap? GMAT. The surprise of today is qualifying session, purple sector 2. I wonder if that's the game telling Porcupines or if it's true, but I think this might be true due to the fact how good his qualifying session has been thus far. Don't forget, the new Alfa Romeo came in the update, only available on time trial though. It does look very nice on the game, to be fair, but kind of wish it was available on multiplayer as well. Kind of wish it would, other teams will take advantage of that as well, but he does not improve on his run then, so he stays P4. Petchdax on the middle of his lap, he's invalid. Charlie Harris, though, currently sitting 3rd in the standings, coming towards the start of the final sector now. I'm surprised he hasn't set a lap yet.
Yeah, surprised not to set a lap. Like you say, it's not been a good start to the session so far, but we'll see what Charlie Harris can do. Like you say, 2nd in the championship at the moment, doing a very good job. Tech31, by the way, has just joined the lobby, which is good to see, so we should have another driver in to start this race, which is nice. There's another driver just across the line. I think that was Speed Iceman, who's just gone P5 in the Aston Martin after he lost his front wing on the first run in his qualifying session. So good luck there from Iceman, who had a fairly solid start to the season in Silverstone, but obviously was not here for Austria last time out, so hasn't gotten off to the best overall start in this championship. Just keeping an eye to see who else is on a lap at the moment. Then Charlie Harris did end up crossing the line, but it's still only a 29.3 for Charlie Harris, which is quite a way off the pace still. So Charlie Harris potentially one of those drivers not feeling all that comfortable tonight. Another driver maybe who isn't that comfortable going into this race is his Ferrari teammate Matter, who is currently doing a long run on a set of medium compound tyres, I think, to just try and get some practice in. The only problem with that is that he's not now going to have an extra set of mediums for the race. So if there is a late safety car where he needs a set of medium tyres, he's not going to have them. So that's one downside to him potentially doing his practice in the session right now. But we'll keep an eye on what happens, of course, to him in the race, as he actually turned in a bit too early there.
And invalid.
Invalidated turn 12 and hit the wall and actually broke his front wing. So again, proving that he's maybe not feeling all that comfortable tonight around this circuit, and that's not a surprise to say that. A lot of drivers are going to feel that way this evening. It is a difficult circuit, as we've mentioned, and we will keep mentioning all the way through tonight. Another driver proving that is Keza, who was nearly 2 tenths up in the first sector, but I fear through that chicane there, may have just lost a lot of that time, and he has. So Keza, definitely more time on the board for the Red Bull driver, who's currently P6.
I feel like there's a lot more pace in him that he was extracting in the first part of the season, because obviously you would expect to be near Simon Palmer's pace, but Simon Palmer doing a lot better. Obviously Simon Palmer being involved in a bit more incidents, but there's certain races where he's done very well, and that was very close between, I think, Keza. I think he lost his front wing there as well with a 127.9, so he does not improve. He has to make his way to the pits, but with a damage like one front wing like that, I think he's going to struggle a little bit there. I think it was Simon Palmer who did not too well in the feature, but Keza did a lot better in one of the races, which meant he scored more points. So Keza on 13 points, Simon Palmer on 2 points. So I think it's going to be a team rivalry there. I think a lot of people will be going into the pit lane now, as I think Speed Knighton saving a bit of VRS to go again soon as well, so we'll keep an eye on if anyone is about to finish their lap. Here's Yarham in the Alpine, who I have to say having a better start to the season than he was last season, and one of his only points came in the sprint races around here last season, so he seems pretty confident around here, but I always tend to have bad luck with Alpine in most leagues. Not in this league though, he's doing a lot better Alpine's doing a lot better in this league than in other leagues, as Yarham goes into the pits. So yeah, I think people are saving their final runs for the final half of the session. Mata has invalidated again, and he's lost his front wing, so he is not... no, he's not lost his front wing. It looked like he lost his front wing from the other half, but it didn't. But he was ill last week, so he hasn't been on the F1 game that much. So that's probably another reason why he's not confident, but you never know. He could turn himself in the race, go from like 14th to end up near the top half. We have to wait and see. His race pace is usually pretty good, but a lot of people are going to go into the pits. Oh, Cam, now that is a weird entry to the pit lane. That was kind of like rallycross drifting there.
Yeah, a bit of interest there from Cam, but yeah, a little bit. I'm a bit surprised by Yarham pitting, because looking at his sector times on that latest run, he was nearly 4 tenths up through the first 2 sectors on his personal best, so he would have been comfortably on pole position, but decided to bail out of it. So I think maybe just wanting to go for another run on a fresher set of tyres at the end, but maybe it would have been worth sticking with that lap and setting the lap time anyway, just to see if anybody could catch him. But hopefully he can nail his final run in this session and not make the mistake and regret that pit stop from that lap there. So we'll wait and see what he can do. Here's Casper, by the way, coming to the end of a lap. He's made the apex of turn 17 this time around, so hopefully should find a lot more time in the final sector. He was 2 tenths up through the second sector split, so where does the McLaren end up? Crosses the line, and he finds nearly 3 tenths in the final sector to put himself on the 3rd row of the grid, currently P6, so a good lap time there from Casper. That's definitely a bit better than we've seen from Casper so far this season, isn't it? Casper, or both, you've got to say, both McLarens in the races that they've both attended have kind of struggled so far this season. They haven't really had a lot of pace, and it's been a bit of a surprise to see them struggle so much, but this is definitely a little bit better from Casper currently in P6.
Definitely, and I have to say they were both Constructors champions last season, but if they have a good race here, that will definitely put the optimism going into pretty much the middle half of the season. But here we go. We may as well go on board with a lap around Miami, because we haven't had a chance to go through a proper lap here. So turn 1, typical normal low speed corner through this right-hander. You're going to be around 6, 7 gear here as well. A lot of throttle management, I think, needs to take into consideration around here as well, as you flick your car to the right-hand side through here and past the harbour section, which is not real, as you head towards the apex of turn 5, 6 and 7, and then go to this long straight now, which will take you through a very long DRS through turn 8 and 9, and then heading towards turn 10 of the Vietnamese corner as well. Pretty much, you're hitting at each DRS point at the same speed as you will at the other one as well. So you do carry the same speed in all the straight line speeds around this circuit as well. Now heading towards that chicane through 15 and 16, as Tam has invalidated. So that's my curse continuing of the curse of the hot laps. Unfortunately, I'm just trying to find anyone on a run that's about to finish. No, so yeah, we got a lot of people starting their laps though, but Doesn't look like Tam's going to get pole unless he can save a bit of VRS.
Yeah, hopefully Tam can save a bit of ERS and maybe go again, but that's a bit of a shame because it was a really strong first sector, but coming into that chicane section in the middle part of the lap, he kind of chickened out of turning into the first part of the chicane because he was maybe worried about hitting the inside, and because he backed out, he then missed the second part of the chicane and invalidated. So it's a fairly easy mistake to make, but it's a bit of a shame considering how strong his first sector was. Cam through the first sector is a 10th up on his personal best, but he's still a 10th and a half down on what Tam just did in that first sector on his previous run. So maybe Cam better set up for the middle part of the lap in that Williams. We'll wait and see what anybody else can do on their runs at the moment. I think we've just had Tech 31 cross the line to do a 29.4, stays in 14th for the time being. I think the first person to cross the line will be GMAC, who's slightly up on their time at the moment in the Alfa Romeo, looking to maybe get ahead of Yarham, potentially in and amongst the Williams if he can do a good final sector. Crosses the line, does get ahead of Yarham, but not quite to the front row, but still a much better qualifying from GMAC than we've seen so far this season, so really, really strong from him. Keeping an eye on Cam, though, for a potential pole position. It doesn't quite look like he's maybe got enough in the tank potentially to beat Tam here.
Nope, it doesn't. He's even a few hundredths down in that middle sector, so he is struggling a little bit, so it looks like Tam's mistake may have not made a difference, and it has. Yarham is on pole position, and Cam goes fastest with a 1:27.4. I wonder if it would have been an even bigger margin if Cam didn't make that mistake, but I think he found all that time in that final sector. Tam, a 10th up in that middle sector. Now Iceman goes quickest. The track is getting even quicker now, and people are saying some quicker lap times. Keza going through the start-finish straight. What can he do? P6 for him. He does not improve. Tam then, he's got enough battery, but he's going to be derating across the line, so it's going to be close for Tam. I don't think it's going to be pole. Nope, it's not. It's going to be third, but he does improve ever so slightly. Simon Palmer goes into the pits, and Speed Iceman on pole position, I believe, for the first time this season. That's definitely going to give him some confidence boost, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely is, and that was a kind of a spring out of nowhere. We were about Yarham and the two Williams really for pole, weren't we? But Speed Iceman in the Diane Detzevet has clutched pole away from drivers potentially that had it in the bag but made mistakes. Yarham in the end, that final run was nowhere near as quick as the run he was doing before he pitted. So that's a mistake there from Yarham, that he didn't complete that lap he was on before the final run, because he would have been on the front row had he done that. So Yarham making the mistake there. Cam, of course, not having the best first half of the lap, had a great final sector but made the mistake in the early part of the lap that cost him. And Tam, of course, invalidating his first run when he was 2/10 up with the first sector, of course, has cost him as well. When Iceman, right place at the right time, put in a really, really good lap and stole it from the bunch of them.
And I have to say, a lot of people improved in their final runs. It's not like what we saw in the last few, well, we saw in the first race in Silverstone and in the pre-season. We saw a lot of people struggling in their final runs, so it may be they were getting a little bit more confidence with the track. So we'll go through your results then. So Iceman on pole, Cam alongside on that front row, Tam in third. I wondered the Williams will be working together with the start there. Yarham in fourth, GMAT with a good qualifying session in fifth, Keza sixth, Mata in seventh, Casper in eighth, Simon Palmer in ninth, and Petchdatz in 10th. Then we got Luke, Speed Knighton, Kieran, Charlie Harris, Tech 31 Racing, Jinx, and I think that was the whole field. Yes, it was the whole field. That was good, because I was worried I didn't scroll through all of it, but yeah, because there's only a few drivers. Obviously, Jinx with a qualifying ban due to his incident last week. So, yeah, apart from Iceman, anyone do you think that has surprised you in a good way? And also, does anyone need to step it up a bit?
I think GMAC, definitely a good surprise there. Definitely a lot stronger than we've seen so far from GMAC this season. That'll definitely be a confidence boost for them to try and potentially get themselves a bit further up in the championship and in the battle in the midfield. So definitely strong performance there from GMAC. I think as well at the end of the session we didn't see his lap in the end, but really, really good run at the end of the session there from Mata. Really, really strong lap that he did in the end. It was a really, really good time from him to put himself P7 when you could clearly tell that he was struggling to get to grips with the circuit. So really good lap there for Mata. So that's definitely another driver who's done really well. And I think one driver potentially will be a little bit frustrated is Iceman's teammate Knighton. Knighton down P10 on the grid. Not horrendous, of course, but he is quite a way off his teammate, whereas the two of them were quite evenly matched when they both raced at Silverstone. So I think he'll be potentially a little bit frustrated that his teammate is so far ahead of him.
Yes, I think there's certain drivers who I feel like will need to step it up too, as well as we wait for the drivers to get ready with their setup as well. Hopefully Simon Palmer could rejoin the session very, very soon. Of course, we've got a few drivers missing tonight, some of them no shows, but hopefully we can get them in ready for next week's race as well. So this track, 5.41 kilometers long, it has 19 corners, 3 DRS zones for tonight's race. And one thing we forgot to mention is a lot of elevation changes, and in real life there was a lot of safety cars which throw something into the mix as well. It helped George Russell start, because he had a really dismal qualifying session. I think he qualified 12th, and then he went on to secure a top 5 finish, and he scored a lot of top 5 finishes in that season. So yeah, obviously they had the Mercedes with the porpoising. Hopefully the porpoising has fixed itself for this year in Miami, but I think it could be a track where people can go from low down to the back to get near the front, but they just can't afford to take too much risk, too much dives, because otherwise you will get penalised like Chinks. You don't want to get that sort of penalty. I think Miami was a track last season where we saw a lot, I think the most penalties out of all the tracks last season, but hopefully we can turn it around again today. You can't see it at the moment, but it's nice and sunny here in Miami.
Yeah, nice and sunny conditions, which I think a lot of the drivers will be very happy with going into this race, because I think that the last thing they want for a track like Miami is to have a wet circuit. It's definitely adds something very tricky to the race. And what you said about penalties, yeah, is even though it's a street circuit, I think a lot of people always assume that you're not going to get penalties at street circuits, but modern day street circuits tend to be a lot more open, don't they? Modern day street circuits are almost not really technically street circuits. They're permanently built circuits that just have the walls very close to the circuit, rather than them actually being specific streets in a city or something. So you're often seeing a lot more runoff in modern day street circuits than you are in older ones, like places like Singapore and Monaco, of course, where it's a lot less difficult to get penalties. So yeah, I think you'll see a lot of drivers potentially pick up penalties tonight. I was thinking about that chicane. If you do make a mistake there, you're probably bound to get a warning if you miss over that chicane. So that's definitely a hot spot for some drivers as well. The first part of the lap, if you do run a little bit wide or you're struggling a little bit racing side by side, there's a lot of runoff that's very enticing to go on to. So while it can be a bit of a saving grace, you can pick up a warning there as well. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if, like last season, we do see quite a few penalties here. I think it is just one of those circuits where, because it is so difficult, it kind of leads you to end up making those mistakes.
I have been informed, by the way, that there is going to be a lobby restart. I don't know why we're going to have a lobby restart, but that's probably why a lot of people left the session that you couldn't really see. So probably due to the amount of disconnections that we had. So we're going to probably end up talking a little bit more than expected, but that's all right while we try and get in as well. But we may as well talk about F1 testing coming up tomorrow. Time does go by very, very fast as well. They're hitting the track in Bahrain tomorrow as well. A chance to see the cars in the flesh as well. I think it's going to be very exciting to see if anyone could challenge Red Bull, have Mercedes fix their car. I really hope they have. And can Ferrari challenge Red Bull? Can Leclerc be an actual title contender to Max Verstappen this season? A lot of questions, I think.
Yeah, definitely a lot of questions. I'm very excited for testing actually this year. I think I'm weirdly more excited for testing this year than I was last year when we had the first new regulations, I feel like, because there is a lot of storylines going into this season that we need to focus on, isn't there? Like you say, there's Mercedes seeing if they can start off with the car that they kind of ended last season with. That's definitely one thing to note. Like you say as well, Ferrari, definitely one to look out for. They've obviously they've talked so highly about themselves over the winter break, so it'll be interesting to see whether they can live up to the hype that they've almost built themselves, whether Red Bull can maintain the gap, and whether the penalties that they got last year for breaking the budget cap have affected them in any way. Of course, that's another storyline. And then beyond the top three, you've got the rest of the midfield, of course, to look through and to see who can get closer to that all-important top three. And by the rumours that I'm seeing on social media at the moment, it does look like Aston Martin are the ones that are doing very well in simulations and testing in their own place, in their own factories at the moment. So potentially Aston Martin looking like the ones that could spring a surprise this season, but of course we don't know what other teams are looking for as well. And a lot of the smaller teams, the midfield teams, you've got to say, have come up with very interesting car concepts for this season, haven't they? I think one of those especially is Alpine. The way that the Alpine looks is very different to some of the other cars, especially the side pods on that one. So it's going to be interesting to see what some of these teams can do, and yeah, really looking forward to testing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how Fernando Alonso can do, I think, with Aston Martin. I think with his expertise, I think with the team, I think that's helped Aston Martin with the car development as well. Of course, they've got Lawrence Stroll that's been for the team for a while, but no offence to Stroll or anything. Alonso is a 2-time world champion. I think with his expertise, I think he's going to push the team to new heights, and I think that Alonso, we did question, didn't we, if Aston Martin would be a good fit for him, but we did see at the end of last season Aston Martin start to get some very stronger results with the team, which meant that I think they were starting to, get a hold of the car towards the end of last season more than most other teams. I think like some teams stopped development, like Alfa Romeo, for example, whereas Aston Martin continued and they were able to. I can't remember where they finished last season, but they were definitely ahead of Williams and Alpine. No, thinking of eSport. No, Williams and I'm trying to think of AlphaTauri. That's it. Williams and AlphaTauri. So yeah, 2 teams not doing very well, but I think Alonso is going to be a dark horse this season with the team. Overall, I think he could. I'm going to make a bold prediction, and somebody could clip it for all to see. I think Alonso could be best of the rest this season. I think out of the, excluding the top 3 teams, I think Alonso could be best of the rest. I think he may beat some of the people from the big teams. I really do hope the rumours are true that Aston Martin do produce a good car, because I want to see someone from outside the top 3 teams actually challenge for the title. That'll just be thrilling. If it's any other person, it has to be Alonso.
Yeah, it would be great, wouldn't it? We've been kind of stuck for, you've got to say, since McLaren kind of fell off of their top spot in 2013, we've been stuck with Mercedes, Red Bull and Ferrari being the top 3 teams pretty much for the past 10 years, apart from obviously when Ferrari have fluctuated and when Red Bull fluctuated, of course, as well. So we've had the same top 3 teams pretty much since 2013, and there's not been any change. So it would be really interesting to see if anybody can get to the front. I think, like you say, Aston Martin at the end of last season, they had a massive step forward throughout the season. If you look at where their car was, of course, in Bahrain at the start of the season versus where it ended up at the end of the season, they by far outdeveloped pretty much any team, you've got to say, on the grid with how much they improved throughout the season. So it's definitely safe to assume that of all the midfield teams, Aston Martin definitely look like the ones that could make the most gains, which will be very interesting to see what they could do. And of course, it would be for the first time in a long time that Alonso potentially has moved to a new team at the right time, because most of the time he's moved at the wrong time and has gone into the wrong team at the wrong time. So this could be hopefully a breakthrough for Alonso for his kind of career at the moment, that he could end up going to a team that's on the up rather than on the down, which, while I'd be happy for Alonso, makes me more upset that Vettel's gone, because now Vettel is not in a car potentially that looks like it could be really good. So that's
typical.
Kind of a shame, but typical, of course. Yeah, that is kind of a shame. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what drivers like Alonso can do. But there's other drivers as well I'm looking forward to seeing what they can do. Gasly, of course, in an Alpine, that's going to be very interesting to see what he can do. Hulkenberg being back in a Haas that's obviously much closer to the budget cap than they ever have been. So that's going to be interesting as well. And of course, it'll be interesting to see what some of the rookies can do this season as well, like Piastri and Sargent. So yeah, a lot of things to look forward to for Formula One this season. I think it's going to be a very, very interesting season, and it'll be telling, of course, as well for what the rest of these regulations are going to look like until 2026, whether the midfield teams can continue to close up to the top 3.
I really do hope so as well. And you did definitely brought a good point about the rookies, actually. I'm gonna raise a question to you. I'm probably gonna throw you on the spot. Out of the 3 rookies, which of the drivers you think will be the top rookies? There's always Rookie of the Year. Obviously last year was different because I think it was just Ronnie Zhou that was a rookie, but to be fair, Zhou did a really decent job last season in that Alfa Romeo, so it's a tough benchmark in my opinion. But out of the 3s, Piastri and Sargent, who do you think is going to be top rookie, I think, this season?
I think in terms of points and points score throughout the season, it's got to be Piastri, hasn't it? I think for the rookies that are coming in, he's definitely in the best position teams-wise. Of course, McLaren are far above where AlphaTauri and Williams are at the moment. Piastri's coming off the back, of course, obviously not racing for a couple of years, but he's been champion in many things that he's done. So, of course, he won F3 and F2 in back-to-back years, so he's incredibly strong. So I think Piastri definitely is one. I think I'm definitely looking to see what Sargent can do. I think Sargent will definitely be an interesting one. I think Williams are a team that kind of need to rebuild at the moment, and Sargent could definitely be privy to that. He could definitely be influential in how Williams can continue to grow as a team. Of course, he's coming off the back of a solid F2 rookie season as well. He was really strong in Formula 3, so there's definitely a lot of potential there as well for Logan Sargent to have a good season. I think the one rookie out of the three that I'm most concerned for, I would say, is Nick de Vries. I think, obviously, his race at Monza last season was absolutely impeccable, but other than that, we've not really seen anything from Nick de Vries single-seater wise that's fully representative, you've got to say, in a long time. You could, of course, say Formula E, but that was in a year where the qualifying format made the grids chaotic, and Nick de Vries just ended up being in the right place at the right time most of the time. So I would really say Formula E is the most representative as when it comes to single-seater racing. So I think it's interesting to see what Nick de Vries can do. I'm less concerned about his talent as a driver and more concerned about the state of AlphaTauri at the moment. And I do worry that AlphaTauri potentially have... I think AlphaTauri, with the car concept they seem to have come up with and their driver lineup and where they are as a team, I do fear that AlphaTauri potentially could end up being the 10th best team this year.
Yeah, I think Williams could beat them. I think Williams, had a bit more of a hold towards the end of last season as well, with Alex Albon scoring quite a lot of the points. I think de Vries in Monza, the car was very strong there, and that was down to the car really. And I think it was stronger than AlphaTauri in some aspects as well. So again, like you were saying, I think it may not be down to the talent. De Vries is amazing talent. It may be down to just the car that's not good enough. But I have to say, for my opinion, I think Piastri, will be the top rookie this year. He's, even though he's had a season off, he's still been integrated with the likes of Alpine and McLaren since, obviously, he wasn't in any single-seater race for a long time. So I think he's going to be a finnable force. And finally, we're going to get some racing underway after 10 minutes of non-action. Thank you to Matt, by the way, for getting the lobby sorted out in good time at the moment, dry at the moment. And, well, last few weeks we saw a bit of a mixture in terms of tyres. Not much of a mixture this week. The only one that's gone different are Casper and Luke. Everyone else has gone for the hards.
Yeah, definitely a bit of a surprise. Like you say, the first a lot of the performances in the last two rounds were kind of dictated by the fact that such a spread in tyres across the field, didn't we? Of course, Jinx won the first round of the season starting on the medium compound tyre and shot off into the distance in the opening stint to the point where even when he was on a slower tyre at the end, he couldn't be caught. And of course, we had a fight at the front between Charlie Harris last week, of course, who started on the mediums, and we had the two Williams both starting on the hards. So that was an interesting fight in the end. That time around, Cam came out on top, but Charlie Harris still had a good result, finishing in second. So I would have said traditionally that you were more likely to see drivers start on the mediums here than you would in Silverstone and Austria, because I think this is a track more in tune to get an early safety car to benefit that strategy. So I'm actually quite surprised that more people haven't gone for the mediums here than they have in Silverstone and Austria. I think it was pretty much a 50-50 split for the first two rounds, but today it seems that it's about 95% of them have gone for the hard compound tyre, which for a track like this, I would have expected it to potentially be the other way round. I would have expected more people on the mediums potentially banking on an early safety car, but be interesting. If there is an early safety car, Casper and Luke could be in a really strong position here, so we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, I'm a bit shocked as well, to be honest, because with the amount of safety cars that we received last season, I thought everyone would have went on a set of mediums. Maybe some people would have put a set of softs potentially as well, so they can go on the hards early on as well. I'm a bit confused, but at the end of the day, they're probably hoping that the standards in Tier 1... To be fair, the standards in Tier 1 has been a lot cleaner compared to last season already, even though there was quite a few incidents last week. So they're probably banking that a few drivers have got a bit more experience on this track compared to previous seasons. But we don't know. I don't know the mind of these drivers. I think they're going to hope that it's completely plain sailing at the end of the day. Now, I've seen Iceman in other leagues around Miami. He has always been very good when he's near the front, and even if he's near the back, he always tries to climb his way forward in Miami as well. So obviously he's had a few more races under his belt around here. I think it was his first race in Miami when we saw him at VSL at one point. So yeah, we'll see what Iceman can do. Cam usually has a good start when he's not on pole. Same with Tam. So I'm expecting one of the Williams to lead into turn one, but we'll have to wait and see, as Jinx is going to be the last one to make his way to his grid spot. But the 5 red lights are on. Iceman on pole, Cam alongside. And for the 3rd time this season, we are underway here at VSL, and looks like Tam has got a good start heading towards turn number 1. Good traction. It could be 3 wide going into turn 1 as well. A little bit of contact between the both of them as well. Cam has not had the best of starts, but Tam leads the way heading towards turn 1 as we've got a spinner. We got Cam. Oh, and Iceman's lost his front wing into turn 3 then. So he was struggling a little bit there. So Tam leads. Iceman in second with a damaged front wing. Simon Palmer's now up to second. There's quite a few carnage in the background as well. I think we saw a Red Bull spin early on as well. That might have been Keza as well. A few people making mistakes, but it's not the first time in VSL we saw the pole sitter struggling. And he has to pit, I think, because he's going down the field. I think I must have jinxed him in a way, which is a bit unfortunate.
Yeah, that is such a shame for Iceman, but it's such a common mistake to make it to be on tyres down too early. And he'll just spin the rears, and that's exactly what Iceman did. He spun the rears, slid wide, and ended up in the wall, which is such a shame. Cam and Yaham kind of went in it 3 wide with GMAC into turn number 2. GMAC backed out, but Cam and Yaham didn't back out of the move, and they ended up colliding and spinning. I don't think either of them have any substantial damage that they can continue on without having to pit, but of course, they're now down at the back of the field. There's more contact further down as Tech 31 is side by side with Speed Knighton in the background, and trying to work his way through the field. I think there is Speed Knighton as Kieran's coming through, as well as Charlie Harris trying to work his way through. Jinx has had an incredible start to this race, by the way. He's made the best of all the carnage as he dives down the inside of GMAC and tries to take P5 away from the Alfa Romeo. A bit of contact between the two of them, but Jinx is through. So from 16th to 5th in 1 lap, that is an opening lap there for Jinx. His teammate as well, Luke, up from 9th on the grid up into 2nd position on those medium tyres, has had a brilliant start for Mercedes. But that start could not have gone better for Tam. 3rd on the grid, launched off the line, was leading by the time they got to turn 1, and it's still a relatively short run into turn 1, and now he's 4 seconds in the lead. The championship leader is having a ball at the end of lap 1.
Yep, he is. He's absolutely loving life. And on the hard tyres, you would expect the likes of Luke and Casper to really take advantage of those mediums, but they really benefited as well, Luke and Casper, with that softer rubber, but wasn't able to get Tam for the lead, which shows how quick he is around here. 4.2 seconds between Tam and Luke, which I have to say is pretty impressive. Early championship favourite, he's definitely turning out to be at the moment. He hasn't got a race win yet, but maybe tonight could be the chance where he can get his first win of the season, and he's definitely the rookie of the season so far in VSL, as Luke is under pressure from Casper right now. But let's keep an eye on Yarham and Speed Knighton. Yarham was caught up in that little bit of escapades on lap 1, but he's able to keep ahead of Speed Knighton up to 13th, and don't forget obviously the top 12 score points. Other drivers that have scored well, as well as Jinx, Tech 31 Racing up 4 positions, Charlie Harris up 2, Simon Palmer up 5, but he's going to be down 4 now, up 4 now, because Jinx makes himself another position in the same corner. No DRS though involved. Imagine what would have happened if he did have DRS. His pace, I have to say, was incredible. This is the pace that he was showing in Silverstone, so definitely I think he's learnt his lesson from last week. He's made his moves a lot cleaner compared to last week, probably because his pace, I think, is a little bit stronger compared to other drivers as well. Casper's had a good start as well. Yellow flag, that is, I think, Mata has had a bit of a spin as he's been overtaken by quite a lot of cars, actually, Speed Knighton being one of them, so I wonder if he's lost his end plate or rear ring or something in a way. Kieran's had a bit of a moment as well. Iceman, don't forget, has gone into the pit lane and he's onto a set of medium, so he's now on technically the same strategy as Luke and Casper. So if there's a safety car, he can go on the better set of his hards again, which has gone through the heat cycle, so it won't be the end of the world. And with that low grid today with 16 drivers, he can get back into this. Kieran has had a worse start, by the way. He's already got a penalty to his name, which is not ideal. Luke, on the other hand, he's managed to close down the gap. It was 4 seconds, it's now 2.4.
Yeah, I don't know if Tam has made a mistake somewhere, or whether Luke is just starting to get pace out a big chunk of time that Luke has taken out of Tam in the last lap or so. So maybe Tam has made a bit of an error somewhere that cost him a bit of time. I'm not quite sure. But Luke and Casper are now pulling away from Jinx, who's in P4, who has got Simon Palmer right behind with DRS and a lot more ERS to play with as well. So that will definitely help Simon Palmer. I think GMAC potentially has some damage that we can't quite see. He was involved in that carnage on the opening lap, so there's potentially some damage on that Alfa Romeo that we're not quite aware of as of yet. Fastest lap of the race from Casper, 30.8, good lap there from the McLaren driver, as I think Tech 31, yeah, Tech 31's had a spin down at turn 17 in the AlphaTauri. Not sure if anyone else was involved. Kez is in the pit, so potentially Keza was involved in that one. Cam in as well. Cam, by the way, outbroke himself into turn 1 and slammed pretty much directly into the back of Matta's Ferrari, which is why they were both sideways at turn 1 and both lost a few positions. So Cam had previously worked his way up a few places and then dropped them all immediately at turn 1 on the previous lap. Naito, another one that's had a spin at turn 3. Turn 3 catching out a lot of drivers, and just to show what a shame it was that he made that mistake, Iceman's gone and set the fastest lap of the race. So yeah, real shame for Iceman that he made that mistake, but if there is a safety car, he's not out of it. There's still plenty to fight for.
Yes, indeed. Lap 4 of 29. DRS is activated at the moment, and Casper seems to find a little bit of form at the moment around this circuit. He's got a bit of straight line speed over Luke. So I am looking at the drivers' fuel usage at the moment, and most of them are on red. So usually, if only one driver's on red, that strongly suggests that people may have underfueled for a race. But if more than one person has done that, then it may indicate weather changes. But at the moment, it doesn't look like there could be weather changes, as Petrodax, I think, has been boxed in on the likes of Charlie Harris and Yarham, bless him. As Charlie Harris up to 7, Yarham up to 8. But looks like Yarham is going to go for another move. We've got another yellow flag in the background. That's Tet that's gone for another spin. Unfortunately, Yarham down the inside before going into the braking zone. But he's made a mistake. He's made a mistake going into the final corner. And we can see the Ferrari and the Haas going side by side. Charlie Harris keeps that position then. But Yarham's got brilliant straight line speed. How is he going to make it towards turn 1? You've got to get your braking point just right. Otherwise, there could be contact heading towards turn 1 and 2. Now, the pit exit is quite narrow as well, so we'll keep an eye on that later when people go in into the pit lane. As speaking of pit lane, Speed Knighton has got a 5-second penalty, so that's a bit of a shame for him. As Tech is out of the session, he's retired in the pit lane, so his race, unfortunately, has come to a close, which is a bit of a shame. I'm almost certain, due to the fact that he was spinning too much, he's got massive rear ring damage. If you get rear ring damage around Miami, it's not nice. I had it before, and it's an absolute nightmare. So I can understand why he's retired. As Yarham then, he's going to take the left-hand side then, heading towards this DRS straight. Now he covered himself on the right-hand side as well. There's 2 cars fighting behind him. Yarham takes advantage of that up to 7th.
Yeah, up to 7th goes Yarham. By the way, the reason he went 17 on the previous lap, he made the move on Charlie Harris and then moved straight back to the racing line, and it didn't really give Charlie Harris a lot of room to brake for the corner, so Charlie Harris ran into the back of the Alpine and pushed him on into the outside of the corner. Not any damage for either of them, but a bit of a mistake there from Yarham in his kind of re-move back to the racing line in front of the Ferrari in the braking zone. So nothing too major there. We've got a yellow flag. Casper's had a spin coming out of turn 17 now, running in 3rd place, having a really strong run, but Casper's dropped the car. That is such a shame on that strategy. That's not the kind of mistake you need to be making this early in the race, and he's now down to P6. GMAC has got through and up into P5, and now we have a very spread out top 5 here. They're all 2.5 seconds apart, pretty much, apart from Tam, who's 3.2 seconds ahead of Luke. So Tam now starting to pull away again from the Mercedes drivers. So I think maybe that was a mistake on a previous lap, and he's just now starting to get back into the swing of things on these hard compound tyres, and he's starting to pull away once again. By the way, when I was running on board with Charlie Harris as well, when he was being overtaken again by Yarham down the back straight, I fear Charlie Harris has maybe made a mistake with his setup, which is why he was so far down in qualifying, because that Ferrari looks incredibly slow in a straight line. He was mugged from about 9/10 of a second back from the Haas on the previous lap. So I do fear Charlie Harris potentially has made a mistake here and has made his car just too slow in a straight line. And around a track like this, of course, he'll want the downforce for the early parts of the lap. It'll just be a sitting duck around the long straights here. So I think Charlie Harris maybe has made a mistake there, and just proved there he was in a DRS zone behind Petrodax and Yarham with DRS, and he still managed to fall out of DRS range.
There could be a situation that obviously Charlie Harris may have forgotten to put setup on, because there was a restart to the lobby, and you have to think about the strategy and the setup. So maybe he selects this strategy but forgot to load his setup, which is easy to do. I've done that many times on previous F1 games, and it's an absolute nightmare to run default setup, if I'm honest. If you're not running a setup, then you're really not helping through some parts. It is understeery without a setup. So yeah, that's probably why Charlie Harris is struggling a little bit so far. It will be interesting to see when people will go into the pits. There's not much delta between the tyres' life in a way, because there's not much difference. 16 laps for the mediums, 22 laps for the hards, and the strategy's quite similar as well. So I think there is not going to be I think mainly about lap 15 to 16 we'll probably see people go for the hard tyres, and then it won't be that long either before they go on to set mediums as well, because they can go halfway into this race and then go on to set mediums as they started on the hard compounded tyres. And obviously a lot of people gone to the medium tyres after their escapades. Keza has come in again, so Keza's race has gone from bad to worse. I wonder if he's going to call it quits and retire the car. Nope, he's going to continue. Damaged front wing. And what tyre has he gone on to? Is it hards or is it mediums? It is mediums for him. Another set of mediums. I think that's his last set of mediums then. So he can't use any more. So if there is a safety car towards the end of the race and you have no choice but to go on to a set of mediums, then he's going to be a bit buggered. But yeah, he's going to be a lap down if he's not careful either. But like you were saying, not much happening at the moment. It may come down to the pit stops like in other races. So we'll probably see the action. But we'll keep an eye on Simon Palmer as he heads towards the back straight then. You can see Casper's derating a little bit. So that's why his timing has gained so much on the straight. So I wonder if Casper is slow on a straight line. We'll have to wait and see then as we head towards the start-finish straight then. As Cam has made his way past Iceman up into 12th place. The last point at the moment, Charlie Harris, I believe, has had a moment, but we'll keep an eye on that in a minute. Simon Palmer down the inside in towards turn 1, but Casper has the better run around the outside as he tries to pretty much defend from this as well. But Casper has made a bit of a mistake. Who's going to get the better run here? Is it Solomon or is it Casper? They're still going side by side through set to 1, and Casper having the better line there, better traction, stayed in P4, so good job from him. And I think Charlie Harris did go for a bit of a tank sapper there, so he's down to 10th. Hasn't lost that much time, so he may have just made a bit of a mistake heading towards that final corner.
Looks like it, yeah. I think he may have been racing with Petrodax, and they've maybe either come together or wide matters of them up into 8th. So that's benefited. What there's one Ferrari's lost out, the other Ferrari's benefited from all of that, and that's also put Kieran now back in DRS into these drivers in front. So that is a little bit of a train starting to form. Jinx now with a 3-second time penalty up in 3rd position. So first of our real major factors in this race picking up a time penalty. He's now 2.1 seconds behind his Mercedes teammate. So he is ever so slightly closing in on Luke now, whose medium tyres are starting to go past their best at this point in the race. I think Jinx and Tam seem to be on fairly level playing fields in terms of pace at the moment, but of course Jinx started at the back and now has a 3-second time penalty as a disadvantage. So Jinx here maybe seems to be the only one on pure speed that potentially could challenge for the win here, but he's on the back foot already with that mistake, with that penalty as well. So yeah, definitely a lot to look forward to for the rest of this race, but a little bit of a lull period at the moment. Like you say, Simon Palmer just trying to latch onto the back of Casper now and maybe trying to let Casper pull himself along a little bit. Casper still on those mediums, of course, looking to try and close back in on the Mercedes that he lost out to with that spin earlier on. And GMAC again just kind of running on his own at the moment in P6, 1.7 seconds behind Simon Palmer, just cruising around at the moment, no threat from behind, just making sure that he's keeping it within the lines and not making any mistakes. And if drivers in front keep getting penalties or keep making mistakes, then he's in the prime position to capitalise on it.
I'm surprised there hasn't been a safety car yet, but I probably may have jinxed things too much, but they are keeping it clean, even though there's been some damage on lap 1, and in the first few laps that is not enough to bring out that safety car, which is great to see at the moment. Clouds forming, but not very threatening at the moment, so it could stay like this for the rest of the race. Obviously, we'll keep an eye out on the weather radar. No news from in the chat from any Marks or Jeffs on what the weather is going to be like, as Iceman has picked himself up a 3-second time penalty. So, unfortunately, his race has gone from bad to worse. And even though people are so further ahead of some other drivers, it could really put them off guard sometimes, because you think you're doing well, and then when you start to make a mistake, it kind of flusters you, and that does allow people like Casper to close in on Jinx and potentially go for the move. But we're hoping, obviously, Jinx carries on his performance, because even though he's got that penalty, I'm almost certain he's going to be ahead anyway due to the massive gap that he has over Casper. So one of the mediums are starting to obviously take its toll already, which is a bit surprising, because it's one of those tracks where mediums can last quite a bit of time around this circuit. But it is Tam that still leads from the two Mercedes, as Kieran has overtaken Charlie, as Charlie is in the pits. An early pit stop, I think, so I wonder if he's picked up more damage somewhere. So we'll see from his car. He's got a damaged front wing again, onto another set of the medium compounded tyres then, it seems. So he's running out of meat. Most people are running out of memes in this back half of the race, and yeah, it's a bit of a shame for these drivers, but still a long way to go. at this moment in time. But yeah, Tam still keeping a decent gap to Luke in front, Jinx in third, obviously. But good to see Mata staying in 8th position despite him potentially struggling a little bit earlier on. But he is under pressure with Petrodax now, so I wonder if Petrodax is going to go for them. Maybe he was battling with Charlie Harris earlier, Petrodax, but he was fine with the other Ferrari, got past him, up to 8th.
Yeah, decent move there from Petrodax down the inside. Nice move there, but the problem now is Kane, and Mata now has the opportunity to come back at the Haas if he's close enough, or whether he thinks he's fast enough, or maybe Mata will just sit behind and let the Haas pull him along. We'll wait and see. I think Mata is not using a lot of the DRS. I think he's comfortable just letting the Haas pull him along here, potentially, for these next few laps or so. And yeah, you can start to see now those on the mediums are now starting to struggle for pace. Casper's just slowly falling further and further away from Jinx at the moment, and Luke now 4 seconds off the lead has got Jinx, his teammate, right behind him on the road. So yeah, he's definitely closing. And Tam actually though has just made a bit of an error there and has lost a second to the Mercedes. So Tam with another potential small error at some point in the lap that he's got to keep an eye on, because while he is obviously out in the lead, not really under any major threat at the moment, got no penalties, Jinx is faster than him, and if Jinx can get close enough to Tam and pass him, and then Tam picks up a penalty, Jinx can win this race. So Tam can't get too comfortable at the front of the field and start making these errors, because the race is not over yet. Anything can happen and he could still lose this race. As Luke there braking very early for turn number 11, and that is clearly so that he can let his teammate go. So Jinx has been let through, team orders there. Jinx is now up into 2nd place.
I have to say, Jinx, I think, definitely the stronger of the two Mercedes, and I think they were playing team orders, or maybe Luke was just not faster than Jinx. Was like, you know what, you challenge for the lead, and obviously Jinx started from pretty much a quali ban towards the back of the grid. I think he started 14th, and now he is up into 2nd place. The biggest gainer so far could be my driver of the day. He's made no mistakes so far. We've got the Ferrari and the Haas of Mata and Petrodax fighting once again, managing their ERS effectively, or both on the 30 to 40% range as well. And we'll see. Well, Petrodax has got the car for straight line speed, it looks like, but it looks like he may get it better on the corners. Yeah, he's got it on the corner. Oh, that was close between Mata and Petrodax in that penultimate corner. That could have been disaster for both of them, but at least they're still going, and Mata's pulling away. So yeah, Mata has better straight line speed, whereas Dax is struggling a bit for speed. So maybe he's got a setup which is not suited to this Miami circuit, unfortunately. So pit window will be opening soon for the hard tyre runners to go on to a set of mediums, but we'll see. I think Luke and Casper pitting very soon as well for a set of the mediums, which will go to the end of this race. We'll keep an eye on Casper to see if he's a fuel maker for the end. I think Casper was expecting a safety car, so he's probably wondering why there's no safety car. But yeah, he's dropping a little bit further afield to Luke, so he's definitely struggling, I think, for grip on and compared to obviously the Mercedes drivers in front of him as well. So 5 drivers with penalties. Obviously, I think the middle sector is where people gain the most penalties, as I found out a few weeks ago when I did a Miami race around here. Safe to say that I believe that was my final Miami race on this game. Me racing now, I think. But anyway, Tam, we'll see how he does this final corner then. He does it all right at the moment, is keeping the gap very, very stable. What about Luke then? Luke, you can tell Jinx is faster than Luke, because the gap was now 1.7 seconds. And Luke is the first man to pull the trigger out of himself and Casper and goes in. And Casper stays out. Casper thinks the overcut will work well for him.
Yeah, Luke into the pit lane then for those hard compound tyres. I think tell he was already struggling. He's gone for another set of mediums. Interesting.
Will we get rain?
Potentially, maybe. If there is rain coming, then yeah, that potentially could be a benefit. But if not, then this is a very bold call from Luke to go on to another set of mediums. He must be expecting some more rain later on in this race to go on for a set of medium compound tyres, because we know on this game the 2-stop is not viable really on any circuit now. So yeah, bizarre call there from Luke to go on another set of mediums, but that maybe does suggest, like you say, that there is some rain on the horizon that could affect this race later on. We'll wait and see whether that will be the case or not. But yeah, into the pit lane as we've got a yellow flag for the down the field. That is Speed Knighton, who's gone off the road at turn 17 and has no front wing. So his miserable race continues. He's now into the pit lane. I wonder if that will potentially be to retire in the pits as well. We'll wait and see what he decides to do. But yeah, Luke then set of medium compound tyres. Be interesting to see what his pace is like. But if there is rain later on, then that suggests that potentially he and Casper may be some of the only ones to pit because the hard runners may stay out to the rain.
Yeah, so I think that's probably they didn't think about the weather potentially as well if it was going to rain, but I just don't get it because it doesn't look like it's going to rain at all. It is getting cloudy, I've got to admit, but it's still quite clear. So he might have made a mistake. He may have pitted onto the wrong tyre, potentially. I don't know. But yeah, I think the only consideration is that it could be raining towards the end of the race. Or it may not come at all. It's set to approximate. So even though the weather is set to a certain amount, it may not be like that. Or it may have been originally set to rain, but it may be not raining at all in this lobby. You never know. So Luke probably making a mistake there. We'll have to wait and see. Or he may think there's another safety car or one safety car and he can go check on the set of softs towards the end of the race. He's going to hope there's either rain or a safety car that will save his race at the end of the day. Casper, though, wants to make sure that he saves his mediums for as long as possible because, well, I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. So he's going to have to pit soon because very soon the hard runners could be viable to go on a set of the medium compounded tyres, as I believe Casper is lapping Knighton. So Knighton has already been lapped by the leaders already, which, to be fair, if you are struggling like that, it is, well, expected at the end of the day. But at least Casper might get some DRS from the lapped car. No, if he doesn't, that's a shame. So the gap's going to be, I think, incredibly big compared to that as well. But GMAT then is on the attack on Simon Palmer, both on hard tyres. But GMAT's hard tyres are definitely the better of the two, it looks like, as they make their way towards the braking zone. Then goes on the left apex. A little bit of contact between the two of them as well. Will Simon Palmer get the better traction? No, he does not. GMAT is up to 4th place so far and could be on course potentially get that podium if Casper is struggling on those 7 meters. Simon Palmer fights back then, heading towards turn number 1 then. They leave as much space as they can then. As they head towards turn 2 now, you can see that the Alfa Romeo is harvesting on energy. He's struggling with ERS. Simon Palmer doing a lot better with his ERS, so surely he could have taken advantage here, but he does not. He stays where he is, stays in 5th. GMAT up to 4th, but I'm almost certain in the next lap, Simon Palmer could get GMAT due to the amount of ERS he has.
Yeah, I think he may potentially be able to get him on this straight here because he's actually close enough, only 3 tenths of Romeo. So I think Simon Palmer here could just breeze back past the Alfa Romeo on the run down through this middle sector. We'll see what he decides to do. Is he going to go the long way around? Yes, he is. He's going to go to the outside line on the Alfa Romeo. Does GMAT to decide to defend this one? No, he doesn't. GMAT backs out of it, and I think a smart move there from GMAT to back out of it. He knows that he's not going to be able to fight it, and there's more DRS zones coming up, so he's let the Red Bull back through. And Simon Palmer back up into 4th place. But both of these drivers having a much better race than we've seen from either of them so far this season, you've got to say, haven't they? Simon Palmer, of course, had a lot of incidents in Austria that cost him a potentially strong result. GMAC hasn't really been all that strong in terms of pace so far this season, but they're currently fighting for 4th on the roads. They're both having a very strong run at the moment in this race. It'll be interesting to see whether they can get any further up. Keeping an eye on Luke's pace, by the way. Luke has got some serious pace on that fresh set of mediums, as you would expect. He's almost back into DRS range on Yarham, so he's about 1.5 seconds a lap faster than the Alpine in front. So Luke is travelling fast back up through this field, and 4th is not far up the road from Luke, and actually Yarham's into the pit lane off of those hard compound tyres, which suggests to me that either we're not going to get any rain, or Yarham doesn't think that the hards are going to make it to the rain, which will be very interesting. So this is kind of the time you would expect someone to pit for the mediums anyway, even if it was going to be dry all the way through. So if I were Luke, I would start to get a bit concerned that he's starting to see hard runners pit.
Yeah, I doubt the weather's going to change because it would have changed by now, but we have seen the weather change massively on this game in many tracks. I think one of them springs to mind was, I think, Austria. When I was racing one season in another league, it was very dry and it was starting to rain, and a lap or 2 later it was enough to go onto the intermediate tyres. It was that quick, so we could see it here potentially if it was going to rain. We could see Luke really closing in, but it's not really going to affect him as much because he has to pit anyway, because he has to pit if it stays like this, because you have to use at least one other different tyre compound. So he may think there could be another safety car and he could go on a set of softs, but Tam are race leaders in, so most of our hard runners are coming in then. Jinx now inherits your race lead at the moment. So Tam, what tyres is he going to go on, mediums or softs? If it's mediums, we know it's not going to rain, I think. If it's softs, it's mediums. So I doubt it's going to rain then if that's the case. So if I was Luke, I'll be getting wide, but we've got GMAC in as well. I think he's going to do exactly the same thing, I think. So we'll follow him in. The driver that's performed very well this season. I see a Mercedes driver that was going into the pits, I think, or just came out of the pits. And medium tyres for GMAC as well then. Interesting. So I think it does suggest to me it's going to stay like this for the rest of the race.
Yeah, of course, and I think even if it is going to rain, you've got to bank on the fact that it's enough rain as well. That's another thing you've got to think about. So is it worth being on the intermediate tyres at the end of the race? And if it's not, that will also hurt Luke's race as well, because he'll still have to pit for another set of tyres. So if I were Luke, I probably would have come in a lap or two earlier and put the hards on anyway, because you'll still have a pace advantage over the old mediums, but you'll also cover both of your bases. Whilst you'll obviously be on a bit of a slower tyre, it does mean that if it does rain, or if it doesn't rain, or it doesn't rain hard enough to warrant using any sort of wet compound, that you're covered either way. So if I were Luke, I probably would have put the hards on either way and just covered yourself to the end of the race. But he's not done that. He's taken a bit of a risk here and has gone straight for the mediums, banking on the fact that the rain is going to be enough to warrant using a set of the wet tyres later on. So we'll see what happens. For Luke, it's a bit of a gamble, definitely. We'll see if the gamble pays off, and like you say, we have seen in the past where the weather changes on a dime and it can be very instant, so that's going to be one thing to look out for. But that's what Luke's pretty much banking on for the rest of this race. Interesting though, Jinx did not follow Tam into the pit lane on that lap, or this previous lap. He's gone past the line again. So maybe Jinx thinks it is going to rain and he's going to potentially try and hold it out to the rain on these tyres. The only problem with that is that when you do start to get to the end of a tyre life around Miami, your pace difference is huge, because the corners are so long and require mid-corner grip, and when you don't have that grip, you're all over the place. So I think Jinx is going to have to hope that the rain comes in the next 4 or 5 laps, and if it doesn't, then I think his chance of winning this race potentially is over.
I have seen people get punches, I think, 22, 23 laps around this track. So, yeah, I think he's pretty much going towards the end of his tyre life at the moment. So he's got to think about, right, what should I do? Would I risk it and hope the rain comes now, or the rain not coming at all, or cover himself either way? He's in a similar situation to Luke. He's pretty much, well, he's going to lose out either way if he pits now. Same with Luke. I think both Mercedes are on the back foot at the moment. So I wonder if the Mercedes were thinking similar strategies, but different tyres, of course. They probably wanted to be on the same set of tarmac potentially as well. And that's going to help. Oh, as Jinx comes in then, so he's not going to want to have a punter, which is good news. He must have probably been listening to the stream. So he's on the set of mediums then, so that will bank him to the end of the race then. So that will promote Tam as your race leader. And I have to say, is it just me? Tam was struggling a little bit at the moment, but obviously Casper's still yet to pit. Casper seems to have decent pace on these mediums, and he's on 18 up on mediums at the moment. And unless the game's glitching, he's not doing too bad. And speaking of that, Tam found 1.4 second in the space of a corner. So, yeah, as you were saying, as soon as your tyres go in Miami, the pace falls off, and that's exactly what Casper would have done. So, I think Casper is probably going to hold it out for a set of softs, I reckon. But we'll see what he does here. I'm a bit worried because I think we've already passed the tyre life for those mediums. I think he's going to go pop, I think, any second. So we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on him. He's running a risk. Again, he's soft. Either way, I don't think it's the right strategy. I think he should have pitted way earlier than this for a set of the hard compound tyres, because of course what this does do as well is it leaves him vulnerable potentially to other people behind that also haven't pitted yet. Simon Palmer is still running on his hard compound tyres, has not pitted yet, and is slowly closing in on Casper. So Simon Palmer obviously was overtaken by Casper earlier on, and he's now starting to recatch the McLaren. So that's another thing to look out for as well. Looking further down the field, by the way, those that have pitted, Yarham's still behind GMAC, but much closer than he was before the pit stop phase. So GMAC in P9, right behind Kieran now, trying to find a way through as further up. Jinx has warmed up those tyres nicely, and he is through on Casper. Casper stays out again, though. Casper continues on that set of tyres. So this is definitely a bold strategy call from Casper. But again, looking at the clouds above us, there's a couple of grey clouds around, but there's still more blue sky than there is clouds. So unless it changes on a dime, I don't see how this strategy is going to work at all for Casper here. So, yeah, a little bit of a pain for him. And the next person to have a go at him now is Luke, who is still going, of course, on those medium compound tyres, hoping for some rain as well. And I mean, just look at the pace difference, even visually, between Luke and Casper, how much he's closing in on the McLaren in that S section. Casper just has no hope, really, here of defending anything. And while he's doing that, Simon Palmer's closing in at an even faster rate behind. So Casper here, I think, is just kind of making his own bed, I think, with this strategy.
Yeah, which is a shame because he was doing so well at the start of the race. He gained a massive amount of positions at the start. He's starting in the back as well. Same with Luke. And Luke and Casper were battling earlier on in the race. And you can tell how much Luke is starting to pull away even with that move alone. So already 4 attempts up on Casper with that move. And that shows that the mediums are just not good at all. And he was struggling a bit in that chicane, Casper was as well. We'll keep an eye on Simon Palmer as well, because Simon Palmer's tyres will be a lot better, even though he's yet to pit as well. Same with Matter. G-Matt, we'll keep an eye on Yarham. Yellow flag. That is Aston Martin, a vice man, I think, who's had a bit of an off. So his day has gone from worse to even more worse at this moment in time, but let's hope he can continue to plough through. You never know, you could get into the points because people could get some punches. We'll have to wait and see. So and I'm worried I could jinx someone by getting a puncher, so I'm not going to say any more of that word, as GMAT gets past Yarham up to 8th place. They're on the same length of tyres at this moment in time, so that should be interesting to see as well. But we'll see how Yarham approaches turn 1. Hasn't got much ERS to use, so I doubt he was going to make the move. Nope, he is not. So yeah, good battles from those two. Don't forget Yarham has that penalty. One thing I forgot to mention, due to Simon Palmer getting a penalty from last week, he's got a 5-second penalty added to tonight's race, I believe. So wherever he finishes, we will add 5 seconds on. I'll need to check with the stewards, but I think that's what he told me anyway. So yeah, shame because he's having a good race already, but that is something that all the other drivers have got to think about as well, is where they fit under Simon Palmer's 5-second penalty, which will get added to the next attended round. So that is a bit of a shame for Simon, but there is nothing more he can do, unfortunately. Jinx has got the same situation. He's got a 5-second penalty as well that will be added. As a yellow flag? No.
Casper, rear left puncture for Casper. He's pushed it too hard on those medium compound tyres. It's gone too far. I was riding on board with Simon Palmer as we were talking about that penalty, just seeing how quickly he was catching Casper, and then Casper had to miss the chicane in the middle part of the lap, and immediately it was clear he had a puncture. So rear left puncture for the McLaren. That strategy has not paid off in the slightest in the end for Casper, and almost missing the turn 17 hairpin as well because of that. The one thing you don't want around a track this fast is a rear puncture, and he's ended up getting that, and he's almost into the wall coming into the pit lane is Casper. He's made it into the pits, but yeah, that strategy was a huge mistake from Casper. He had a solid, if he'd followed a normal strategy, you've got to say Casper had a very solid top 4, top 5 finish on today. He was comfortably ahead of Simon Palmer, and of course Simon Palmer still hasn't pitted yet. So yeah, I think Casper, with the normal strategy, Casper had a very good shot at a solid 4th place finish, which would have been his best result of the season so far. But by going this bold on the strategy, it's completely fallen apart for him, and he's now down outside of the top 10.
I have to say both McLarens were on bold strategies, because Kieran is struggling a bit on those hard tyres, and we saw how quickly the medium tyres got into a bit of a puncher territory as well. Iceman got another 5-second penalty, and I'm trying to see, the clouds are starting to get very thick very quickly, and I did say it could get dark very quickly around here. Maybe Luke's strategy was the right one. Maybe to go on to those semis, but is it going to rain quick enough? Or is it going to be the fact that people have pitted and that's enough potentially as well? And we'll keep an eye on the ones that are staying out. I think Simon Palmer and Matter were staying out for the rain as well. And whoever pushes too much, I think will be the one that gets the puncher first. So they're going to have to do some tyre life saving, because in a lap's time they would have passed the sell-by date of those hard tyres. As Speed 19 has retired from the session, he has had enough. He doesn't want to race in these conditions, but yeah, it is less clear than it was before. As we see one of the Williams come in, that is Cam. So he doesn't want to be like Casper, and he wants to cover himself just in case the rain doesn't fall down hard enough. But we'll see as Cam goes on to a set of the soft compound tyres, same with Charlie Harris as well. So I thought Kieran would have done the same Matter and Simon Palmer, but yeah, I think they're just going to hope that their tyres don't wear off a little bit. They just got to avoid those curbs like the plague.
Yeah, they definitely have. But again, a bit of an odd call from Cam there as well, especially with it going to rain in the next lap or two. Then that pit stop was potentially unnecessary for Cam. He was quite late on that set of medium compound tyres. We saw, of course, Casper get a puncture after 21 laps on them, but yeah, either way, maybe a bit of a late call there. As Yarham and GMAC now on their fresh tyres starting to work their way through. They're now both past Matter and back up into 5th and 6th places respectively. So Matter on his old hard compound tyres still going and is now comfortably clear of the drivers behind, but he's just dropped a couple of places there. So I think for those that have extended on the hard compound tyres, so far at least, if it does rain, this strategy has worked for them because, of course, these hard tyres can pretty much do the majority, if not the whole race distance without puncturing. So they're not doing too badly of the hard tyre runners that have not pitted yet so far. And if it does rain, then it has paid off for them, especially for Simon Palmer, who was looking like he could be finishing down in 6th or 7th behind the likes of GMAC and Yarham. But if it rains now and they will have to pit for intermediates, he's 10 seconds up the road. So it's so far at the moment, if it does rain, it's worked for Simon Palmer and it's worked somewhat for Matter as well, considering the incidents he's had so far in this race. So we'll see what happens, but if there is no rain, then they're going to have to pit at some point, and they're going to probably pit for that set of soft compound tyres or hope for a safety car. Either way, we'll wait and see what they do. Casper fastest up of the race, though. Not a surprise on that set of softs, but again, Casper surely got to be ruining that strategy mistake because he has such a solid result going for him. Potentially as well, if it didn't rain and he just pitted on a regular strategy, he could have had a podium on the cards, of course, because Luke still has to pit for another set of compounded tyres. So if it didn't rain and Casper followed the regular strategy, Casper definitely had a 3rd place finish on cards here today, which has obviously not gone his way. So again, McLaren so far this season, being Constructors champions last season, coming into this season, not been great for them. And now it is starting to rain. Here comes the rain then. The rain is starting to come down. Is it going to be hard enough for a set of intermediate tyres? And if it is, Luke and Simon Palmer's races here have been saved.
Wow, the heavens have opened in Miami, and when it rains in Miami, it pours, and could this change the whole complex of this race? Jinx is in then. He thinks it's enough for Inters. That is bold. That is very bold indeed. I think it's too early personally, but if it works, fair play to him as Luke gets past him as well. That's pretty much saved Luke's bacon if it rains hard enough as well. So we'll see. We could see the gap between Jinx and Simon Palmer. If it comes down, it means Jinx is struggling on those intermediate tyres. If it comes up, that means that Jinx is starting to operate them in a good window and Inters is the best tyre to be on. But the track is still dry. There's no spray on the circuit at all. So Simon Palmer's done the same, which is a question I don't get at the moment. There are certain parts of the track where it is damp. You can see the soft tyres just have more grip at the moment. He's already passed one intermediate runner, Casper, but Simon Palmer then fights back a little bit. But just look at the traction Casper's gaining already on those intermediate runners. So Casper's life could be saved because people have made the wrong pit strategy, which I have to say, oh, that's a bit of desync happening in the background. Oh my goodness. There was 2 cars on top of each other, and that's a shame. I'm not going to go on board with those 2 because, DRS disabled. Now that could be good for Jinx. The track is getting damp now, so maybe he made the right call to pit now. Has he gained enough to get ahead of Tam? I don't think so, but will it be enough to get ahead of his teammate? I think at the moment the answer to that is yes. Luke's staying out, which with DRS disabled, I'm questioning why he's done that. But here comes Jinx then, coming towards the start-finish straight. Will his early pit stop paid off for him? The answer to that is, it's very, very close. He's going to get a 5-second penalty added to the end of this race anyway. So no matter what happens here, Tam will still be winning this race. But it's so close. It could have paid off for him. He's also got that 3-second penalty as well. But on track, Jinx is in P2. And he's going to try and close up on his teammate now. And I did say that it would come down this much. I didn't think it would come down this much in a lap's time. So, yeah, that has saved Luke's race, I think. But He's going to drop down to 4th if he doesn't. Well, he's going to drop down to 4th anyway. But if he doesn't pit now, he's going to drop way behind. So we'll keep an eye on that. And Casper and Cam. Now that questions why they pitted for soft. They probably wasn't expecting the rain to come down this hard. They're crawling on a set of those soft tyres.
Yeah, they really are. And here comes Simon Palmer now trying to work his way past Casper as well. Yeah, I'm kind of baffled. Some people like I don't know why they didn't go disabled and the spray's starting to come, that they stayed out on those set of tyres. But you can see Casper now mugged in the braking zone by Simon Palmer, who just breezes around the outside of the McLaren. And of course, they're still on fresh softs. That's the best kind of tyre you can hope to be on. Best kind of slick tyre you can hope to be on in these conditions. And they're still just far too slow. And you can see that there. Cam sliding all over the place, trying to find a way past Petrodax. Luke has made a mistake. Luke's still staying out. Why is Luke staying out? I'm baffled. This is almost like Luke is staying out thinking that he's on the right tyre. Oh my god, I thought he was going to slam straight into the side of Tam there in the braking zone. He just managed to get stopped in time. But yeah, here comes Cam now on the inside of Dax. He's going to go down the inside. Simon Palmer's going to potentially try and get the pair of them here. He's going to split the middle. That is brave stuff from Simon Palmer. And Cam's just going to drive him to the outside wall. And then Cam is going to spin on the exit because of the lack of traction. That was racing that Cam really didn't need to do there. He was far too aggressive on the wrong tyre at that point in the race. Casper and Petrodax are in 2 laps too late on that set of tyres. And what was already a difficult race for them, they've made it far, far worse for themselves by pitting far too late for these intermediate tyres. They're going to drop even further down the field than they already were before this pit stop phase. And yeah, I am completely baffled by what Luke is doing here. Luke in 3rd on a set of medium compound tyres is throwing away a podium here because he has 26 seconds on. Yeah, he's crawling, sliding all over the place. He only has 26 seconds to Simon Palmer. And Luke's actually going to spin it and come to a full stop there. Simon Palmer's going to steal the podium here because Luke has to pit for a set of inters. And if he doesn't and he goes to the end, he's going to get disqualified anyway for being on the wrong set and for not using 2 sets of slick tyres. So what Luke is doing, I don't know. But this is, I think, honestly, probably one of the weirdest strategy calls I've ever seen in a league race for Luke to stay out in these conditions on a set of mediums that he shouldn't be on anyway, because even if he did stay out to the end, he would get disqualified. So Luke here has thrown away a double podium for Mercedes.
I think there's one driver that comes to mind of what strategy he was doing. Lando Norris, who was on the sort of slick tyres at the wrong time. He was on course for the win, did not pit when everyone else pitted, and he lost the race victory, which I was heartbroken by because I wanted Lando Norris to get his first win, but he didn't. But Luke has to come in anyway. And that's going to help Jinx because he's got that 5-second penalty added to his race time because he didn't do well last week. And that's not going to affect him as much because Luke was on the wrong tyre. So Jinx is going to be P2 anyway. Simon Palmer's going to potentially have a good result as well. And the deficit is not going to be that much for him either. And look at the gap already. And Matt is going to try and close in as well. Matt is going to be on for a good result here for 6th place. And Luke's just gone ahead of him now, actually, as we got a yellow flag. That is Petrodax had a bit of a spin. Luckily, everybody's on the on the intermediate tyres now, so everyone's on the right tyres at the moment. And I have to say, a wet track around Miami is something that you do not want to be on. It is absolutely awful. So fair play to all of them for keeping it on a straight line. And you can see how the leads are pulling away from everyone else. 26 seconds behind, well, compared to Simon Palmer and Tam, and then about 30 seconds between Simon Palmer and Jinx. So, yeah, I think Jinx is doing a solid job already. He's continuing strong form that he's shown in Silverstone. Shame about that 5-second penalty, really, that he got from Austria, but that's not going to hinder him too much. He's still going to finish 2nd place, which I have to say, from the back of the grid, I have to say, apart from Silverstone, definitely a very strong race from VSL standards for Jinx.
Yeah, it's a really, really strong race from Jinx. Like you say, obviously, he's not going to win it based on where we are with penalties now. Tam, by the way, has a broken front wing, so I don't know where that's happened or whether he had contact with Jinx at some point, but that is why Tam is now 5 seconds back. He's got a damaged left end plate, but even with the penalties that Jinx has got, Jinx has to finish over 11 seconds ahead of Tam to win this race. So as it stands right now, Tam has got this comfortably in the bag as we're on the final lap of the race. So Tam just needs to get to the end within that 11-second barrier and he's won this race. But either way, Jinx, even with the penalties that he's got and the penalty he's got coming at the end of this race, what a race it has been for Jinx from last on the grid through to winning this race on track. Of course, not going to win it in the end, but this is much more like it. I'm kind of baffled as to why he was so far off the pace in Austria in the end, but yeah, had a really strong first round of the season. Third round of the season here in Miami has been amazing from Jinx. Really, really strong performance, even if he doesn't win this race. But what this has done as well, this race from Jinx and Tam, I think for me, fully establishes these two as the fight for the title, you've got to say. Tam has been super consistent. While he's not picked up a win, he's been on the podium every time, including the sprint, and he's been very, very strong. And Jinx has got incredible raw speed. So these two definitely look like the championship favourites.
Yeah, so Jinx ups the line then. He's going to come across the line to win on track, and it will show it in game that he will win this race. But it is Tam then, due to Jinx's 5-second penalty from last week and that 6 seconds he got this week. Tam wins in Miami then to pick his first win in VSL on only his third race. Well done to him. And we got Simon Palmer who's going through this back straight. I wonder where he's going to end up after that 5-second penalty. I believe, how many penalties has Yarham got? It's going to be around about, I think he's going to end up potentially in 4th place, but we'll keep an eye on that. So Simon Palmer crosses the line 3rd on track. But he's going to finish 4th. Will he stay 4th? No, he's not. He stays 3rd, actually. Okay, so yeah, GMAC's got that penalty as well. So that is interesting. Luke in 6th, Matter 7th by 8/100ths of a second over Luke. That was very tight. Then we got the two McLarens who I was questioning on strategy for the minute. Casper 8th and 9th for Kieran. Cam in 10th. Then we got Petrodat and Charlie Harris that will get the final point. So Simon Palmer, he will drop, I believe, to a 5th place behind GMAC and Yarham due to his penalty. Jinx will drop to 2nd, but without that penalty, 4,000 separating Jinx and Tam. That is crazy.
Yeah, that is incredible, isn't it? How close it was. It will still result in a Tam win as it stands, but yeah, incredibly close if that penalty wasn't there for those two. And yeah, brilliant driving from the pair of them. And I think with those penalties applied after the race, for my guesses, that means GMAC will be 3rd in this race in the end, because of course the 5-second penalty for Simon Palmer will put him back down to 5th. And of course Yarham had the 3-second on-track penalty and ended up dropping behind the Alfa Romeo. So if my calculations are correct, then it is definitely going to be a GMAC on the podium, which is a really strong result for who's struggled a bit for pace in the first 2 rounds of the season. To get a podium here, brilliant result from GMAC today. Really, really strong result from him as well. But yeah, the top two in today's race, Tam and Jinx, were just country miles ahead of the rest of the field, weren't they? They were in a league of their own, and it's a brilliant performance from both of them. And yeah, congratulations to Tam on his first win of the season. Hopefully it's one of many.
Yeah, I think I might have crowned the wrong winner here, because I thought it was added from last week, but I think I thought from this week's race, but it's ending up from last week's race. So I do apologise. We crowned the wrong winner. It is Jinx that gets the win by about 4,000 a second. So it was close. Do apologise, and yeah. That was me reading the stewards wrong. So yeah, that's the closest finish of the season. So Jinx wins from Tam, from Simon Palmer, GMAT, Yarham, Luke, Matter, Casper, Kieran and Cam, your top 10. Then we got Petrodat and Charlie Harris, your top 12. Keza and Iceman, your top 14. Then we got Knighton and Tet that has retired. So yeah, there we go. Apologies that I got it wrong, probably because I thought that Simon I thought it was both Simon Palmer and Jinx after their instance last week, but I forgot that Jinx did finish the race last week. So yeah, congratulations to Jinx, his 2nd win of the season. I wonder if that puts him into the lead of the championship. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure on that one. Tam might have just pipped the lead on him, but we will see. I think the top 2, that's going to be so amazing heading into next week. Let's hope Jinx doesn't make a mistake in round number 4.
Yeah, hopefully not. Maybe it's the even number of races that don't go well for we'll wait and see. But yeah, if that is the case, then congratulations to Jinx. What a close finish, 4,000. Tam, I'm sure, will be gutted with that. That is a real shame for him to lose the race on that. And with that damage, of course, that he ended up picking up at the end, that's cost him the win, sadly. But either way, great performance from both of them, and it'll be a really close championship fight moving forward. Yeah, just double checking the stewards room. It is Simon Palmer will still get that 5-second penalty. Of course, obviously he didn't finish in Austria, so GMAC will get that final spot on the podium. So brilliant stuff from GMAC, of course, today as well. So yeah, very interesting. Just looking in the chat as well, off the stream, Luke has come in to say that the reason he stayed out on those mediums was to hold up Tam, which in the end potentially was the reason that he ended up winning that race. But I don't really know if he did end up holding up Tam or not, because I think Tam ended up with the damage outside of that, and that's what cost him the win. I'm not quite sure either way. I'm not sure if it was still the correct decision, Luke, because I think Luke's there. Even if he had pitted, I think potentially Tam still would have lost that race with the damage, and Luke would have ended up on the final spot on the podium. So not quite sure with that one. It's definitely hindsight to look at for that one, but a lot of up and down races here today for a lot of drivers, and I think another driver today who's going to be really, really gutted with how their race has gone is Cam. After such a dominant performance in Austria, it's back to kind of the speed, but the mistakes that we saw from Silverstone from him.
Yeah, exactly. So, two of our championship contenders doing well, whereas Cam falling by the wayside. Will that not help in going into next week? Let's look at the calendar for next week, which is, if I can find it, come on, I had it open, there we go. We head to Spain next week, which is a coincidence because we're commentating on Spain in another league, so we're going to have 2 Spain races in 1 week. But obviously we got the newly profiled Turn 10 that the drivers have to race with. They raced here last season, I believe, as well. Plenty of experience. Surely this is sometimes a good track for league racing. Maybe that newly profiled corner could make a difference. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, it's going to be two Spain races in 1 week next week. Should be quite fun.
Yeah, we'll be all practiced then, won't we, by the time this race rolls around next week. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting as Spain. Like you said, I think it's definitely it's a decent league racing track. Like you say, tyre heating and stuff like that is definitely a problem at Spain. It's a lot easier to overtake, of course, in the game than it is in real life around Spain, so it's going to be interesting as well. It's quite a difficult circuit as well in terms of track limits, and because it's such a demanding track on tyres, you can make a lot of mistakes there as well. So a lot to look forward to for Spain. Definitely, it's going to be an interesting race, and it's back to more the races we saw in the first 2 rounds of the season. So again, we could see a different pecking order once again.
Yep, exactly. If you're liking the action here tonight, make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram at VSL_F1. Subscribe to us on YouTube and make sure you check out our sponsors. But for myself and Aidan, we'll see you next week for the Spanish Grand Prix. Will Jinx get his 3rd win of the season, or will Cam fight back, or will Tam get his 1st win of the season? All be revealed next week, where we head to Spain for the Spanish Grand Prix. Have a good evening. Bye-bye.